Let me ask you something real. Have you ever felt like no matter how kind, patient, or understanding you are, it's never enough for someone? Like you're giving everything and still walking on eggshells around someone who never gives you the same energy back? You try to be nice, to keep the peace, to fix what keeps breaking, but deep down you're exhausted. Not because you're weak, but because you're stuck in a cycle with someone who thrives on your confusion and feeds on your kindness. Today, we're going to break that cycle. This isn't just another talk about setting boundaries. It's about reclaiming your power, your voice, and your sense of self. It's about stopping the cycle of being endlessly nice to someone who doesn't respect it and learning what to do instead so you never feel powerless again. If you've ever dealt with manipulation, emotional games, or felt like you've been shrinking just to keep someone else happy, then stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you won't just feel seen, you'll feel strong enough to make the shift that changes everything. Let's begin. Being nice can seem like the right thing to do. After all, we're taught that kindness, patience, and understanding are noble qualities. But when you're dealing with a narcissist, being endlessly nice doesn't protect you. It empowers them. Narcissists don't view kindness through the same lens. They don't see it as a beautiful human trait to be respected. They see it as weakness, as an opportunity, as something they can use. And every time you give them a pass, make excuses for their behavior, or swallow your truth just to keep the peace, you're sending a silent message. You can treat me like this and I'll still be here. That message is dangerous, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because a narcissist doesn't take it as compassion, they take it as permission. Over time, your niceness becomes a tool in their hands. It gives them the space to continue their pattern without facing any real consequences. They hurt you and you stay. They lie and you forgive. They manipulate and you explain it away. In their mind, there's no reason to change. Why would they? The situation works perfectly for them. What looks like grace and patience from your side becomes leverage from theirs. They learn that they can cross your boundaries and still have access to your loyalty. They realize they can make you feel guilty for setting limits, and you'll back down just to keep the harmony. And harmony in this dynamic always means you lose and they win. You might tell yourself that if you just love them harder, give them more time, or be more understanding, things will change. But the truth is, narcissists don't respond to more kindness. They respond to loss of control. They don't transform because you are patient with their chaos. They shift, if they ever do, because someone finally showed them that their behavior won't be tolerated anymore. Being too nice just extends your suffering and delays the day you reclaim your power. It convinces you that keeping the peace is better than protecting your heart. But peace at the cost of your dignity is not peace. It's emotional slavery. You don't have to become cold or cruel. You don't need to fight fire with fire, but you do need to stop feeding their ego with silence and smiles. You need to stop being so available to someone who only shows up for their own gain. Niceness without boundaries isn't love. It's self-abandonment. And the longer you stay in that role, the harder it becomes to remember who you were before you shrink yourself to keep them happy. The narcissist isn't going to draw the line. You have to, because the moment you do, you stop being their emotional supply and start becoming the version of you that refuses to be used as a mirror for someone else's ego. Kindness is a beautiful quality, but it loses its strength when it lacks boundaries. Being a kind person doesn't mean allowing others to mistreat you or disrespect your time, energy, or emotions. There's a difference between having a good heart and allowing your heart to be walked over. When you're dealing with a narcissist, that line becomes even more important. They know how to twist your kindness into something they can use. They'll turn your empathy into guilt, your forgiveness into approval, and your silence into agreement. Without clear boundaries, your kindness turns into an open door for their manipulation to walk right through. It's not your job to fix someone who keeps showing you who they are. It's not your responsibility to keep the peace when they're the ones breaking it. You can still be kind, but that kindness should come from a place of strength, not fear. It should come with self-respect, with limits, and with a clear message that love does not mean allowing yourself to be mistreated. You don't owe anyone endless patience when they consistently show disregard for your feelings. True kindness isn't about self-sacrifice. It's about showing up with love for others while still holding love for yourself. When you don't set boundaries, you become emotionally exhausted. You start doubting your own worth, blaming yourself for the imbalance, and questioning whether you're too sensitive or too demanding. That confusion is exactly what a narcissist wants. It keeps you in a place of chasing validation, of trying harder, of being even nicer in the hope that they'll finally change. But narcissists don't change because you're nice. They don't wake up one day and suddenly value your softness. They keep taking because they're allowed to. And until you stop letting your kindness excuse their behavior, they will continue treating you like an option, not a priority. Boundaries aren't walls, they're gates. They protect the valuable parts of who you are. They tell others how to treat you, and the moment you enforce them, everything starts to shift. You'll feel stronger, more grounded, more in control. You'll see the narcissist push back, challenge you, test you. That's part of the process. They're not used to you choosing yourself. They're not used to your no being a real no, but your strength will shake their control. And when you stop explaining your boundaries and start standing by them, you take away the game they've been playing for so long. You're allowed to say no without guilt. You're allowed to walk away without apology. You're allowed to love yourself enough to stop giving chances to someone who only shows up when it's convenient for them. Kindness is powerful, but only when it includes kindness toward yourself. Don't let your heart be so big for others that it leaves no room to protect your own. Narcissists are skilled at finding the softest parts of you, the parts that want to understand, forgive, and give the benefit of the doubt. They're drawn to your empathy like a magnet because it's something they don't genuinely have but know how to exploit. They know exactly how to trigger your compassion by playing the victim, creating chaos, or flipping the script to make you question yourself. And if you're someone who leads with empathy, someone who wants to see the good in people, that's exactly the angle they'll use to gain your trust, your attention, and ultimately your control. Your desire to understand them becomes the door they walk through to take more than they ever intend to give. Empathy is powerful, but in the wrong hands, it becomes your greatest vulnerability. Narcissists don't respond to it with gratitude. They don't feel humbled by your understanding or touched by your patience. Instead, they see it as a weakness, a loophole, a tool to keep you stuck in a cycle of confusion and emotional manipulation. They test your limits not to grow closer, but to see how far they can push before you finally break. And with every new excuse they give, every lie they twist, every moment they make you feel like you're overreacting, they're feeding off the emotional energy you keep offering freely. The more empathy you show, the more they sense they can get away with. They'll blame their behavior on stress, trauma, or their past just enough to keep your heart open and your defenses down. But they don't use your empathy to heal. They use it to deflect responsibility. They use it to avoid change. And they use it to keep you emotionally invested in a relationship that always feels one-sided. You end up doing the emotional heavy lifting, trying to fix what they keep breaking, hoping your understanding will inspire them to be better, but it doesn't. It just keeps you trapped in a loop where you feel drained, disappointed, and questioning your own reality. What you need to realize is that real empathy includes empathy for yourself. It includes recognizing when your own emotional health is being sacrificed for someone who has no intention of meeting you halfway. There's nothing noble about allowing your compassion to be used against you. There's nothing healthy about staying silent just to avoid conflict. And there's nothing kind about letting someone continue to hurt you because you believe they can change. Change doesn't come from more chances. It comes from accountability. And narcissists avoid accountability like the plague. So the more you give, the more they take. The more you forgive, the more they repeat. And the longer you stay, the harder it becomes to find your way back to the version of you that didn't confuse empathy with endurance. You don't need to stop being an empathetic person, but you do need to stop offering it to those who only take and never return it. Save it for those who see your heart as something to respect, not something to use. Clarity is your anchor when you're dealing with the narcissist. In the fog of manipulation, emotional highs and lows, and constant confusion, clarity becomes your greatest weapon. Narcissists are masters of creating emotional chaos. They don't want you thinking clearly because when you're clear, you see the patterns, you notice the lies, you recognize the manipulation. You stop second guessing your instincts and start trusting them again. Clarity allows you to look at the situation not with the eyes of hope, but with the eyes of truth. And once you see the truth for what it is, you stop trying to change the story and start changing your response. Narcissists want you emotionally attached because that's where they hold power. As long as they can keep you reacting, feeling guilt, sadness, or anger, they know they can still control your decisions. They want you wrapped up in how to fix things, how to win them back, how to keep them happy. But the moment you become emotionally detached, you take away their fuel. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring overnight. It means you stop letting their moods, actions, or words determine your worth. It means you stop personalizing their behavior and start realizing it's a reflection of them, not of you. It's a quiet shift, but it's powerful because when your peace is no longer up for grabs, they lose the control they once had over your emotions. When you operate from clarity, you start asking better questions. Not, why are they doing this to me, but why am I still allowing it? Not, how can I fix this, but what part of me thinks this is okay? You begin to remove yourself from the drama and observe it from a distance. That space is where your strength returns. Narcissists hate clarity because it strips away their ability to confuse you. It turns their manipulation into noise that no longer gets through. When you stop trying to make sense of their chaos and start standing firm in what you know is true, they feel it, and often they'll react. They'll test you. They'll try to pull you back into the emotional mess with guilt trips or love bombing or sudden changes in tone. That's when you need to hold steady because that reaction is proof that you're no longer feeding the cycle. Clarity doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from stepping back, from looking at the pattern, not just the moment, from listening to your gut and not just their words. Narcissists live in denial, projection, and blame. Your clarity pierces through that fog. Your detachment is the boundary they can't manipulate. And when you stay grounded in what you know, you stop needing their validation. You stop playing their game. You stop hoping they'll see your worth and start showing them that your worth was never theirs to define. That clarity is what leads to freedom. That detachment is what brings your power back into your own hands. Respect isn't something you ask for, it's something you show through the way you treat yourself. When you respect yourself, you send a clear message to everyone around you about what you will and won't tolerate. You stop begging for love, explaining your worth, or chasing someone who doesn't see your value. And that's exactly what breaks the grip a narcissist has on your life. Because narcissists don't want equals. They don't want partners. They want followers. They want people who shrink, who submit, who stay quiet just to keep the peace. But when you begin to respect yourself, you disrupt that pattern completely. You stop being their mirror and start being a wall they can't get through. Teaching people how to treat you doesn't start with a conversation. It starts with your choices. It starts with the boundaries you set, the energy you protect, and the decisions you make when someone continues to cross the line. You teach people what's okay by what you allow. You teach them how important your feelings are by how seriously you take them yourself. Narcissists prey on those who doubt themselves. They test how far they can go And when they see you constantly forgive, constantly explain, and constantly stay even when you're hurting, they learn that your respect for them outweighs your respect for yourself. And that's the pattern that needs to end. Self-respect means walking away even when your heart wants to stay. It means choosing peace over potential. It means understanding that someone who repeatedly hurts you is not confused. They're consistent. Narcissists are not changed by more chances. They are changed by consequences. And the strongest consequence you can give is removing the privilege of access to your heart, your time, and your emotional energy. The moment you start respecting yourself fully, the dynamics shift. You stop being their emotional supply and start being a reminder that their tactics no longer work. That's when the pushback comes. That's when they'll try to guilt you, charm you, or make you feel like you're the problem. But it won't matter because your decision isn't based on how they feel. It's based on what you know you deserve. Loving yourself is not a trend or a phrase. It's a decision. It's a discipline. And it shows up in your life through the standards you hold and the silence you choose when someone expects you to keep entertaining their dysfunction. Self-respect means no longer fighting for a seat at a table that you were never meant to sit at. It means letting go of the version of you that needed someone else's approval just to feel worthy. You don't have to wait for a narcissist to validate you. You validate yourself every time you say, "This isn't good enough for me." You reclaim your life every time you walk away from what hurts and choose what heals. That's what true strength looks like. That's what true self-respect creates. And once you live in that truth, there's no going back to the version of you who settled for less. So here's the truth that ties it all together. You were never meant to stay stuck in a cycle where your love is used, your kindness is drained, and your worth is constantly questioned. Being endlessly nice to a narcissist doesn't make you noble. It makes you vulnerable to someone who never had the intention to grow, change, or respect what you give. The real shift happens when you stop hoping they'll see your value and start living like it's not up for debate. You begin to build a life where your peace is protected, your heart is honored, and your standards are non-negotiable. It's not about revenge. It's not about bitterness. It's about waking up to your own power. When you set boundaries, walk in clarity, guard your empathy, and demand respect by giving it to yourself first, you no longer fit the role they once cast you in. You evolve beyond the need for their approval, and you rise into a version of yourself that refuses to be controlled by emotional games. To everyone listening who's been there, who's felt confused, drained, or trapped in that push and pull dynamic, it's your time to take your power back. Not by being louder or colder, but by being clearer, firmer, and rooted in self-respect. Let them wonder why you changed. Let them notice the silence where they once controlled your emotions. Let your actions teach them that you no longer play small just to be accepted. You've done the emotional labor long enough. It's time to invest that energy into yourself. Thank you for giving your time, your attention, and your heart to this message. You are stronger than you've been led to believe, and your future